in the beginning, in that moment, just before you start any project or venture or presentation, everything is unknown, and anything can happen. You might discover the cure for AIDS. You might uncover a buried treasure. I might become the next Simon Sinek. Imagine that. Imagine living in a world where every opportunity for success, for growth, for love and acceptance is possible. Just imagine that. Because that is the world that we wake into and walk into and breathe into every single day. A world where anything can happen because everything is unknown. Now, of course, in that moment, in the beginning, when every opportunity for progress, for positivity is possible, so too is every opportunity for failure, for loss, for disappointment. What if I forget my words? What if my idea is dumb? What if nobody listens to me? As a college professor, I see students every day who dread taking tests because for some reason they can imagine a future that's unknown but contains a failure. And they can imagine that more readily than they can imagine a future where they take joy in sharing what they've learned. And students are not the only people who fear the unknown, right? Just between us, I live in fear of the unknown. Do you? You just raise your hand just a little, I promise. I won't tell anybody. Do you? Do you fear the unknown? Yeah, that's okay. It's cool. Don't worry about it, right? Because a healthy fear of the unknown is what's allowed humanity to thrive and survive for millennia. When you don't know what's on the other side of that tall grass, but you think you might be able to eat it, but it might be able to eat you, but you're hungry, but it might be hungrier, yeah, you should listen to that fear, and you should learn from it. Now, of course, most of us today, we live in a world where that grass has been mowed and manicured, and the tiger naps in our living room. Right? That's my tiger. Right? Well, most of us today, we won't require a club, a rock, a stick, or a gun for our daily survival. Most of us today in the 21st century, we're going to require survival tools that are based on curiosity, creativity, and connections. Now, this billboard, this image of this billboard from Copenhagen in 2009. It's become a kind of a contemporary, iconic remix of a statement by a mid-20th century philosopher. Alan Watts said that when we replace our fear of the unknown with curiosity, we open ourselves up to an unlimited stream of possibilities. And I like this image. Man, I dig this image because it knows my fears. And it reminds me that by being curious about the unknown that I fear, that I can slip into that infinite stream of possible positive outcomes. In my work every day, I try to help people build a culture of creativity, invention, and innovation. But what I have to remember is that the tools and the skills of creativity and innovation and invention in the mid-21st century, they're not going to look anything like those survival tools of the mid-20th century. Now, I'm nobody's Nostradamus, but I feel I'm pretty safe in assuming that in 2048, nobody is going to apply for a job that asks them to spend the day in a cubicle copying columns and columns of figures into a ledger with a number 2 pencil, or filling in rows and rows of Scantron bubbles. No. Now, the world shakers of the mid-21st century, the world shakers that are studying today and learning today, and the future geniuses who will be born tomorrow, they're going to require survival skills that are founded on the ability to make and recognize connections through creative work and fueled by curiosity. Curiosity, it's a skill. It's a skill that has to be practiced in order to build and strengthen, right? People who are curious, they have a deep interest in a wide variety of topics and subjects. They don't look for answers to questions so much as they search for solutions to problems. Yeah. I think about Thomas Edison, right? Thomas Edison, or any of the other 80 or 90 people who were granted patents for light bulbs in the late 19th century. I don't think that they woke up one morning and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to invent the light bulb." I think that what they thought was probably something more like, why must we live subject to the schedule of the sun and the moon? How can we safely transfer our daytime into the nighttime? Can we double human productivity by working both day and night? And why are we still using lighting technology that a cow can kick over and burn down a whole city? You'll notice that those are not technical questions. They're not questions like, what carbon filament would be best for incandescence? Or is a gas-filled bulb better than a vacuum bulb? Or AC current or DC current? No. Now, when we're curious about big things outside of our immediate world of concerns, we're far more likely to follow our curiosity more deeply into creativity. Now, creativity is a process through which we can give our curiosity actions. And when I think of creativity, I don't necessarily think about Edison or Bell or Davy or Morse or any of those people. Now, when I think of creativity, I think of children at play. Because play is what I call the active part of creativity, right? When children play, before we teach them the rules of the game, what toys are appropriate for them, who they should play with, children naturally play with great bravery. They play with courage. They play because they are in the beginning. They're in that place where anything is possible. To a kid, the unknown is a world waiting to be explored and assembled into things. To a child, a box is not a box, a stick is not a stick, a spider is not creepy, and a snake is not scary. No, to kids, when they're in the deep throes of creative play, they can do anything. A child can create a sword out of a stick, a starship out of a refrigerator box. A spider is not scary. It's just tickly. And snakes are just wiggly. They're fun. And people are just people. Children, before they learn to fear, children are brave. Children take deep interest in everything around them. Children want to explore. A child can look out the window and recognize the fact that the space between their houses is bigger than the space inside their houses. And they want to explore. Children create games for themselves that require hiding things, finding things, bringing things together. They yearn to make connections. Connections among diverse ideas and people are sometimes referred to as the grandparents of innovation. Stephen Johnson, in his book Where Good Ideas Come From, he said that when we create an environment where serendipitous connections among ideas and people can occur, that innovation is more likely to occur. Now, it's easy for us in the 21st century to think about those great innovators of history as solitary figures, right? In a room by themselves, hunched over a table with wires and test tubes, until a great aha moment sends them running into the streets to the waiting crowds and throngs of people who want their invention. But that's seldom how it happens. That's seldom how it happens because connections are critical to innovation. Now, I want to go back about 500 years. I want to go back to this guy, Leonardo da Vinci. Now, Leonardo da Vinci, in 1490, this is deep into his creative career, Leonardo left us a journal, a book, and in that book there was a to-do list. And that to-do list included a variety of items. There were 15 of them, in fact. Those 15 items were things like talk to the armorer about how cannons are positioned, get that book on mathematics, measure the city of Milan, paint the city of Milan, measure the Duke's palace. Right? You get the point, right? Of those 15 items, 2 of them were about finding a book. Right? 4 of them were tasks, actual jobs to be done. But 9 of those items on that list, 9 out of 15, the majority of them were about meeting people, getting together with people and solving problems, making human connections. Right, now I want to bring it forward about 450 years. To Homedale, New Jersey, 1964. There were 2 scientists from the Bell Laboratories who were using a 20-foot horn antenna to listen for signals from outer space. Right? And they attached to this horn antenna highly sensitive electronic listening equipment. And as they listened, they noticed that there was this hum, an annoying humming sound that they couldn't get rid of. They did everything they could. They cleaned out the electronics, still the hum. They supercooled the electronics, still the hum. They pointed the antenna at locations all over the sky, still the hum. Well, eventually they thought maybe it's bird poop, because literally, pigeons had nested inside this antenna. So the scientists, they relocated the birds, they cleaned out the nest, they cleaned out the mess. They went inside, they put on their headphones, and still that humming, it wouldn't go away. They could have been on the point of giving up, throwing in the towel, quitting. But one of these guys from Bell Labs just happened to run into a physicist from the university down the street at Princeton. And this physicist just happened to have read a paper by some folks up the coast at Harvard. And they had posited that when the universe was created in a great blast that scattered matter out across everything that we know of as the universe, that it also scattered radiation. And that radiation might someday be detected as a constant, omnipresent hum from the heavens. So they got together, they got in the car, they went back to New Jersey, they got in the shack, that shack right there. They listened to the noise, the sound that those scientists from Bell Laboratories thought was defective equipment. They listened to it, and they decided that, yes, indeed, what they were listening to was the echo of the Big Bang. What they had perceived as noise, this omnipresent hum, was the sound of the creation of everything that we imagine, that we believe. And this is why I believe that human connections are so important. Because not only do these real-world, real-time, face-to-face, one-on-one, proximate communications and connections, not only do they bring us information to answer questions, but they also teach our brains to make connections, to bring order out of chaos, to help us figure out the meaning of all of the ideas bouncing around in our heads and outside our heads in an omnipresent, constant hum. Those connections are critical. But today we have these things called silos. You've all heard of silos, I'm sure. Right? Silos of practice, silos of learning, silos of business, silos. And those silos are things that have developed over time, or in some cases been built specifically to keep us separate one from another. Right? So that the physicist stays in their lab, and the artist stays in their studio, and the writer stays in his coffee shop, and the actor on his stage. But here's the insidious part. We feel safe when we're in our silos. We feel safe because we know everything. We fear nothing except what's outside of our silos, right? Now, if we can be brave, if we can be like children and play, if we can climb to the top of our silos and look out over that open expanse between our silos of practice, between our practices, and if we can recognize that space as fertile soil for growth, and we can double the capacity of human growth. Now, that quote earlier about replacing fear of the unknown with curiosity, it has a second part. It says, we can let fear rule our lives, or we can become childlike with curiosity, pushing our boundaries, leaping out of our comfort zones, and accepting what life puts before us. I want to invite each and every one of you, the next time that you feel that you're not enough, or that your idea is dumb, or that maybe people won't listen to you, I want to invite you to remember that that's just your fear of the unknown. And you can let fear rule your lives, or you can replace that fear of the unknown with curiosity. I want to thank you for listening to me.